Recorded vote has been called on Bill number 41, third reading. The clerks will call the roll. Those in favor will say aye, and contrary-minded nay.
Mr. Rodney McDonald.
Yes.
Mr. Christie.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Russell.
Yes.
Mr. Ham.
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc.
Oui.
Mr. Muir.
Yes.
Ms. Purvis.
Yes.
Mr. Fage.
Yes.
Mr. Bowser.
Yes.
Mr. Parent.
Yes.
Ms. McGraw.
Yes.
Mr. Chisholm.
Yes.
Mr. Olive.
Yes.
Mr. Morris.
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. DeWolf.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Dukes.
Yes.
Mr. Langell.
Yes.
Mr. Chataway.
Yes.
Mr. Hinsby.
Yes.
Ms. Bailey.
Yes.
Mr. Carey.
Yes.
Mr. Morash.
Yes.
Mr. Chipman.
Yes.
Mr. Barnett.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Hurlburt.
Yes.
Mr. Corbett.
No.
Mr. McDonnell.
No.
Ms. Maureen McDonald.
No.
Mr. Dexter. Mr. Holm.
No.
Mr. Manning McDonald.
No.
Mr. Gadet.
No.
Mr. Smith.
No.
Mr. McCaskill.
No.
Mr. McEwen. Absent. Mr. McKinnon.
No.
Mr. Wilson.
No.
Mr. Sampson.
No.
Mr. Steele.
No.
Mr. DeVoe.
No.
Mr. Robert Chisholm. Absent. Mr. Estabrooks. Absent. Mr. Epstein. Absent. Mr. Pye. Absent. Mr. Boudreau.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, those in support of the motion 31, those opposed 13.
Motion is carried.
Expenses of the public service of the province.
Or the bill be read by the, or the title be read by the clerk, or the bill be engrossed, or the bill do pass. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, would you please call the order of business public bills for second reading?
Public bills for second readings.
Speaker, would you please call Bill number 36, the Financial Measures Act?
Bill number 36, the Financial Measures Act. As members know, we're now on the amendment, 6-month hoist amendment. Now, member for Halifax, Needham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to stand here and speak in support of the hoist amendment moved by the House Leader of the Liberal Party. Mr. Speaker, I think that if there is ever an appropriate use of the hoist amendment, then certainly this is it. If in fact this amendment is successful, the government will have 6 months to hold discussions with the casino operators, and that I think would be much more productive than having received a telephone call from the casino operators to the Premier or the Minister of Finance saying jump, and having the response, is this high enough?
Order,
or
please.
When
Order, please. Now, member for Halifax, Needham has the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, I would say to the Minister of Education, if he wants to get up and participate in the debate, I would look forward to that. And I would look forward to hearing from many members of the government caucus about what their perspective and their position is with respect to giving this special treatment to the casino. I'm quite sure that Nova Scotians would like to know why Casino Nova Scotia merits such special such special treatment. For many people in this province, this is a question of fairness, and they definitely, people I speak to, ask, what is so special about the casino that they get to be exempted from legislation that is designed to protect the health and safety of workers, Mr. Speaker, and specifically so that people are very clear about the amendment to hoist the Financial Measures Act. If this act passes without being amended, then there are provisions in this act brought forward by this government that will override the municipal bylaw that will protect workers at Casino Nova Scotia, here in Halifax and the casino in Cape Breton, from being exposed to secondhand smoke. And Mr. Speaker, this is not just about fairness and the question of treating service sector operators fairly. It's very much a question of protecting the health and safety of workers and treating all workers in Nova Scotia with the fairness that they deserve. Mr. Speaker, it wasn't that long ago that we had a visitor here in our legislature, a woman who I was very pleased to have an opportunity to introduce to the members of this legislature. But, Mr. Speaker, frankly, it was sort of a bittersweet occasion because this is a woman who is suffering with a terminal ill cancer, lung cancer, as a result of being exposed to secondhand smoke. And of course, Mr. Speaker, you know that I'm speaking about Heather Crow. And Heather Crow, who originally hails from Nova Scotia, but who has lived outside Nova Scotia for a number of years in Ontario and currently lives in Ottawa, has worked for many, many years as a waitress in a number of establishments. And Mr. Speaker, she has never been a smoker, yet she currently suffers from lung cancer, and without any question, there's absolutely no question that the kind of cancer that she has is cancer that is directly attributable to secondhand smoke. That has been the finding of her physicians and experts in the medical field. This has been presented before an administrative tribunal, and there has in fact been a landmark case finding that she suffers from cancer as a result of exposure to secondhand smoke in the workplace, and she is being included now for compensation benefits under the Workers' Compensation Act in Ontario as a result of that situation in her case. And Mr. Speaker, when she came here, I believe that she met with all of the party caucuses. She met with the government caucus, with the Liberal Party caucus, and with the NDP caucus. And Mr. Speaker, she said to us, and I'm sure she said to other caucuses, that she would like, it's her hope that she would be the last worker to die from secondhand smoke. She says, Mr. Speaker, that I want to be the last person to die from secondhand smoke at work. And she appeared in front of the HRM Council with respect to the bylaw that they introduced, which in fact would protect workers at the casino. And I think, Mr. Speaker, that we need to pay attention to people like Heather Crow, and not only Heather Crow. I think, Mr. Speaker, we need to pay attention to people like Andrea Skinner, who we saw in the news last week. This is a young woman with a history of cancer in her own family. This is a woman who's been working at the casino for more than 5-6 years. She's a dealer at one of the tables. For long periods of time, she may be surrounded by people who are smoking, many people who are smoking, and she developed headaches and dizziness and nosebleeds and generally was feeling unwell, and she attributed her feelings of unwellness to the exposure to secondhand smoke. And of course, you know, we're all becoming more aware of the impact of not just smoking, but of being exposed to secondhand smoke. Mr. Speaker, in October of 2001, the Premier basically said that his government was committed to smoke-free legislation, and that his government would take the time to do it right, to bring in smoke-free legislation and to do it right. And, quote, "We will work to ensure Nova Scotia's legislature is at the forefront of national and international efforts to reduce smoking and to reduce exposure to secondhand tobacco smoke." And Mr. Speaker, this provision in the Financial Measures Act that takes away the impact of HRM's bylaw. I mean, HRM's actually ended up doing what this Premier and this government should have done in the legislation they introduced. When the Premier said that he would take the time, his government would take the time to do things right, well, they didn't do things right. They exempted the casino under their smoke-free legislation, and they left municipalities around the province, including HRM's municipality, having to examine whether or not what the province did was the right thing. And HRM Council, I think quite correctly, have found that what the province did, what this government did, in fact, wasn't the right thing, that it didn't put us, as the Premier said, in the forefront of national and international efforts at all to reduce smoking and exposure to secondhand smoke, and that there was this big hole in the government's legislation that allowed this situation where workers at the casino are not afforded the same occupational health and safety provisions and protections as workers elsewhere.
In 6 months.
And so HRM Council saw fit, Mr. Speaker, to address that inequity in terms of the health and well-being of workers at the casino, as well as the concerns that people in the service sector, in the service industry, hospitality industry, I think quite rightly have, Mr. Speaker, with respect to the inequity between their establishments and Casino Nova Scotia. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that the hoist, if we were to take 6 months, there is a lot of work that we could do as a legislature. The government could enter into discussions with the casino operators and not the knee-jerk kind of reaction that we've seen as the result of what the Minister of Finance says was a phone call, where the casino operators basically say jump, and the government says, is this high enough? How long would you like us to stay up? Can we come down yet? This is not the way to make policy in Nova Scotia, especially policy that will have a profound impact on the health and safety of people in the workplace. Mr. Speaker, Smoke-Free Nova Scotia have provided an enormous amount of information to government and to the various party caucuses here. And we all know, Mr. Speaker, the evidence is there that secondhand smoke kills approximately 200 Nova Scotians each year through heart disease and lung cancer and other forms of cancer. It also causes more than 1,000 respiratory tract infections, pneumonia, bronchitis, and these kinds of diseases. It certainly worsens asthma for people who have those kinds of conditions. And Mr. Speaker, Nova Scotia is a place where we have dreadful levels of cancer and many of these bronchial and asthmatic conditions. And I think that we need to start thinking seriously about all of the ways that we can reduce the exposure that people in this province have to known carcinogenics. Mr. Speaker, it's well known that employees who are exposed to secondhand smoke at work, in particular restaurants, bars, and at casinos, are among the highest risk workers to diseases as a result of secondhand smoke. And so, Mr. Speaker, I think it's very important that we take the opportunity to hoist the Financial Measures Act for a period of 6 months to allow for a fuller public debate, to ensure that the government can actually justify the special treatment for the casino. I think that it's incumbent on them to address what is so special about the casino and why is it that workers who work in that environment don't deserve the same protections that other workers do in the province. Mr. Speaker, we all know that there's a huge financial cost to secondhand smoke and to the illnesses that come from secondhand smoke. The financial cost is the burden that is placed on our healthcare system when people suffer the various illnesses and their symptoms that result from exposure to secondhand smoke. And I think, Mr. Speaker, it is somewhat hypocritical for this government to have introduced an office for health promotion, which they provide little or no funding for in terms of real programming. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we see this government not at all serious about dealing with something that's very much within their power, and that is protecting workers in places like Casino Nova Scotia. So you have to question just how serious is the Ham government about improving the health status of Nova Scotia with these kinds of half-hearted measures and the kind of contradictions that you can see between what it is they say they want to do and what it is that they actually do, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we had many groups and individuals come here to Province House during the government's bill on smoke-free places. And I had an opportunity to watch quite a few of the presentations at HRM Council from some of the same people who were here, but quite a few different presentations than what we saw here. And without a doubt, Mr. Speaker, I think the public opinion on this, what people in our community want, is they want healthy workplaces, they want smoke-free public places, and they want a level playing field for people who are in the service sector. Over and over again at HRM Council, the people who are presenting from young people in the high school, which I really congratulate for their civic-mindedness, to get involved and participate in that process. And many of these young people came very well armed with information, and they had done their research, and they had looked at, what the numbers were with respect to the number of deaths and the kinds of illnesses and the kinds of diseases that result from secondhand smoke. They had looked at some of the research that had been done around the impact of having smoke-free legislation on business and industry, and they did a very good job. And I think, Mr. Speaker, they would really appreciate, many of these young people, an opportunity in the 6 months if we were to hoist this Financial Measures Act, an opportunity to speak directly with government about their concerns. After all, Mr. Speaker, they're the next generation, and we need to take time to hear from the youth of our province, especially since this government and the Premier say that their emphasis is on young people and tobacco. Well, let's hear from the young people in this province. And I can tell you that I rather suspect that they would find it more than a little ironic that this government talks about protecting people and promoting health while allowing the casino to carry on business as usual, exposing people in that setting to secondhand smoke. Mr. Speaker, without exception, I think the restaurant and bar owners and lounge owners are feeling, they're feeling very abused, I guess you could say, by this entire process, a process where, first of all, this government did not do the right thing in its own legislation, but created a situation that, in fact, opened up exactly what we here in the opposition said that would occur, that there would be municipalities all across the province would come in to fill the void that was left by the fact that this government wasn't prepared to do the right thing and to do what the Premier said he was going to do, to introduce legislation and do it right. That piece of legislation has failed so miserably that we now have this patchwork of